Okay, I've got nothing to do today. I should be thinking about the playoffs and how the Colts, what they're going to do when we get to the round of 8. But no, I'm sitting here thinking what might have been, what could have been, what should have been. Let's take a look back at the 2021 season for the Indianapolis Colts. We'll start by remembering that great preseason. What a preseason it was. Then the season started, and it was completely different. You might remember how the Colts traded away their first-round draft pick in 2022 to get Carson Wentz. And he did not look ready when the 2022 season started, as the Seahawks just had their way with us in Indy. It's 28-16, and it wasn't that close. The very next week, the Colts were at home again against the Rams. This is a must-win. You can't lose back-to-back in your own building. And they did. This one you can't blame on Wentz, so he left the game late, and Jacob Eason came in and showed what he can do. Week 3, a hobbled Carson Wentz plays and doesn't have ability to do much, and the Colts just did not have it against the Tennessee Titans. They're in an 0-3 hole, 2 games back now of the Titans, and it doesn't look good, and I'm having visions of 2017 and 2011 in my mind. Week 4, we get to see the Miami Dolphins and our old friend Jacoby Brissett, who is playing, and the Colts do win this game 27-17, although the secondary looked bad late in the game. But we snuck out a win, and 1-3 got Baltimore next week in the old city of the Colts. And Monday Night Football. How did that go? I'm going to tell you. It looked really good until that fourth quarter came around and Jackson to Andrews over and over and over. And the Colts are in a prevent defense not to let anybody get behind them, so they just let them do it over and over. And it felt like a nightmare watching that game because you knew no matter how big of a lead the Colts had, it was going to shrink and be no more. And that happened in overtime. And the Colts are sitting at 1-4, and you're thinking this is not going to be a good year. Maybe 7-10, but then they start to turn it around, though. Instead of feeling sorry for themselves, they got the Houston Texans on their schedule, 31-3. So they're bad, but they're not that bad. And then they get San Francisco, and they win the game, surprisingly. And 3-4. Okay, now here's the game that really matters. This might be for the division because you've already lost the Tennessee Titans once before. You get the Titans again in their building. And again, a big lead, up by 10. They choke it away. Carson Wentz makes some of the worst decisions I've ever seen a Colt quarterback make since Scott Tolzien. I mean, just terrible decisions. They lose the game, another overtime loss. They're sitting at 3-5, and this is bad because you're not going to win that division because you know Jacksonville and Houston were not going to be that good. So you knew that the only team you had to go after was Tennessee. You win the games against the Titans, you can take weeks off. But no, that didn't happen. So now they've got to do it the hard way. They've got to get in by the wild card. They get the Jets. Again, a night game, national audience. They get off to a big lead. They start to fall apart late in the game, but this time the lead was big enough. They win 45-30. Okay, you're not feeling good about the defense and the secondary especially, but 4-5. Okay, 7 seeds this year in the playoffs. They get Jacksonville. Okay, it's at home. They do okay against Jacksonville at home. They held on 23-17. I don't know why they can't blow out Jacksonville like they do Houston, but they can't. Then they go into Buffalo. This is the statement game. They run, and they run, and they dominate. All of a sudden, you're thinking, hey, we can get in the playoffs now. Then Tampa Bay comes to town. They have not beat Brady since 2009, but those were all with New England. Can they do it? They were up by 14, and late in the game, again, the fumble by Wentz, the secondary just can't make a stop. They lose it. Okay. They get Houston again, same exact matchup as last time, almost the same score, this time 31-0 instead of 31-3. So you know this team is good, you just don't know, can they hold up against the elite teams? Then they go play New England. At home, Saturday night, Jonathan Taylor runs all over the Patriots. They win the game. They avoid passing the whole game. You're thinking this team, it can be something special. Like not just make the playoffs, do something in the playoffs. Then they go into Arizona on Christmas Day, and they're depleted. Offensive line, COVID is hitting the Colts, and you're thinking, okay, this one could be a trouble spot here. They somehow find a way to win. Big plays. Missed kicks by Matt Prater. Okay, 9-6, 2 games to go. Then the Raiders come to town. Turns out to be like a play-in game for the playoffs. They struggle. 2020, 2 minutes to go. The defense doesn't make a stop. They end up losing. And, you know, there's more than one way to lose. They could have lost by a touchdown, but they grazed him, so they had to kick that field goal. No time left. They lose 23-20. You almost think, you know, it would have been better had they just let them score. They get the ball back. Maybe they can do something. They still lose. They're 9-7. That 98% chance of making the playoffs has dropped, but they can still make it. All they have to beat is the Jacksonville Jaguars. And you wonder, why is Jacksonville still in the league? They serve no purpose. They have very few fans. They're like a fifth-dimensional imp who has no purpose other than to bug Superman. They're like Mr. Missile-Flick. And the Jaguar fans put up with it. Who do put up with it? They're dressing up as clowns because they can't take it anymore. The Colts are favored by 15, and I scratch my head and I'm thinking, they haven't won there since 2014, and they're favored by 15. Would I wager $1 on this matchup? No. I just want them to win. They're not going to cover that spread. And right from the get-go, you could tell this was not the same Trevor Lawrence. This was not the Trevor Lawrence who was the 37th ranked quarterback in the NFL. No, this was the Trevor Lawrence from Clemson who was, as eyes were lit up because he's playing Wake Forest. This was the Trevor Lawrence from college who won the Heisman and national championship. And they couldn't touch him. They couldn't pick him off. Jacksonville was running with a third-string running back. They could not stop them. The playoffs slipped out of their fingertips. It was there. It was there, and they didn't want it. And they still could have got in even without this game because they needed many things to happen, and almost all of them did, except Pittsburgh squeaked out a win against Baltimore in the last 2 minutes on a field goal. They didn't deserve to get in the playoffs. They backed in because Baltimore had lost their last 6 games of the season. The only team that crashed harder than the Colts were the Ravens. So as we look back into 2022, actually 2021, it's 2022 now because I'm kind of crossed up. It was going so well in 2021, and then the calendar changed and everything went wrong. And you're thinking, every other year is 16 games. This is a year they stretched out to 17 because they need more money. They need more money. They need more night playoff games because they need more money. The NFL can't exist on the money they had. They need more. That's why they had to make 17 regular season games. And they had to stick Jacksonville as that 17th game. So 2022 is going to be here by September. The season, there's not going to be a first-round draft pick. And I'm not going to feel confident at any point in 2022. No matter what the record is, you're just going to think back, oh, well, there's still a mathematical chance we won't make the playoffs because we have Jacksonville the final week of the season. So we'll see how it goes. And this is a recap of 2021.